Camera's rolling.
Baby, I'm too young to know any better, but I guess I'm just too old to care. I'm waiting on the morning light to clear the air. Now the sky is hung with regret, letting go that you pay flags. All the silence that keep me coming back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at me now. I'm the one that you created. The one that you hated. Now the sky is hung with regret, letting go that you pay flags. All the silence that keep me coming back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at me now. I'm the one that you.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dad Talk Today. I just went in there and talked to my wife. I found out it's Thursday, so that I know this now. It's Thursday. Usually start this off saying I have a really exciting show. I wouldn't say that this is exciting, but it is very meaningful, and I need you guys' help making sure that we get awareness out about this. This is an older case that I reported on in the very beginning of Dad Talk. It is still going on, okay? This one's going to break your heart. Right now with the GoFundMe with John Mast, I'm going to post that down there in the comments. I'm not going to read out the ways that you can support the show. Don't send me any money right now. I'm looking at that GoFundMe that I just put down there in the comments. Let's make sure they've got the money to fight that case. We've raised about $4,000 out of 50,000, man. Let's keep that going. The case that I'm about to talk on was very similar. When this case went down, we actually did a GoFundMe, and because of this community, I'm going to give you a hand clap. Because of this community, this little girl who lost her life has a tombstone. Okay, we'll be there later on this month, and it'll be my first time getting to see it in person. But that's some of the power that we have as this community when we come together and help our brothers. I had to pre-record this interview. Alec lives in an area that has really bad cell phone service, so the logistical part of this was a nightmare. I had to edit it, so I'm going to pull it up, and we're going to play it, and then I'll come back on here, talk to you, take some questions and everything. Really quick before we get started, though, you know what to do. If you got your phones, if you got your computer, do it. I see people watching right now like this broadcast. Can you do that? That is very small, man. Like, share, subscribe, get down here in the comments, welcome people as they come. Let them know what Dad Talk Today is about. Let them see the love that this community's got and the passion behind getting change inside of this thing we know as family law. These stories that I've covered over the last month, man, are all deaths that could have been prevented. CPS could have done their freaking job, but they didn't do it. It's mind-blowing, man. In this case is a 5-year-old little girl that lost her life due to the failures of this system. And they're very hard to report on. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Guys, check out the Dad Talk Today shop. We've got it up. We've got it rolling. We've got people waiting on you to do what you do. There is way different orders. I know some of those are a little expensive, but we also got shirts as low as 15, some as high as 30, but they got sleeves, they got front, they got back. There's cups. There's many different things that you can get over there. dadtalktoday.com. Go to the shop, and I appreciate every little bit of support that you get us. When I'll give you a little context right before we get in this interview, and I'm going to pull myself down and watch it with you. When I initially did this, it was one of my first cases where I'm talking to somebody that's lost a child. And those are the hardest interviews to do because it's like, man, I know this person's going through pain, and I know what this question is going to do, but I got to help him get out the story, right? At the same time, I'm looking at this 22-year-old father, and I'm looking at him, and I can see in his eyes, lost, doesn't know where to go, in shock. Like, I can't believe what's happening. It was like what was going on wasn't even reality when we did that first show. And I said, here is this young man that wanted to be a father that is now grieving over the loss of a 5-year-old child. And there is people, you know, at first, before the details got out, they was bringing him in it, like somehow he was involved. He wasn't involved. He wasn't there. That's how, when they leave stuff out in the media and they see that something's happened to a kid, people automatically go to the default. It must have been something to do with the father. Here he is, 22 years old. He's got people from all around the world, guys, from Japan to Australia, you name it, reaching out to him, wanting this story about the 5-year-old who drank mom's bong water. They wanted a sensational story. And now here we are 4 years later. I'm talking to him the other night. I recorded this right after I did the interview with Justin Knoll. And I said, Alec, how many of those people in the media have reached out to you since? None. It was all at the funeral. They all wanted the story. But was there anybody there that wanted to get some more solutions? You can't tell me this isn't sensational. The hard thing is I hate sensationalism. At the same time, this is a sensational story. There's many details about this story. It's not just about her drinking the bong water. It was what happened afterwards. When they found out that that was what she did, they didn't just rush her to the hospital. They conducted all kinds of experiments on this 5-year-old girl, and she lost her life before she got to the hospital. Why are we back reporting on it again now, 4 years later? There's 2 people. There was 3 people involved, but there's 2 people that are in jail, and that's still not justice, but at least they're locked up. There's one that left the country to get away from this. We are now being told there is a very good possibility they are back in the United States of America. And I want you to make sure that we get that picture plastered everywhere. And if you see something, make sure to call the authorities and let them know that you put your eyes on this person that was responsible, that had a part in Sophia Larson's death. What is going on, man? Oh, we got Canada up in the house. Father X, what's going on? Michael, Paul, Tiffany, what's going on? Sabrina. I just wanted to make sure I said hey to everybody. At this time, I'm going to pull this down. If you got some questions, while you're listening to this, go ahead and put it down in the comments. And when I come back, we'll go over them together. And like I said, like, share, subscribe, ding the bell, get the notifications for when we go live. Because unfortunately, guys, this is not a one-off. And I get stories like this all the time. So many of them that we can't cover them all. And 4 years later, father's still grieving, man. But you know why he's still speaking up? Because he wants to help other dads that are going through the issues that he's going through. Very strong father, man, and he's excited to be a part of this community. He's still sitting around watching everything that's going on, even though this happened to him, and he's trying to continue on his life. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Let me go ahead and start this up. You might see where the video skips every once in a while. That was, again, it was internet connections. He is out in the middle of the boonies. Trust me, I've traveled that part of the country. I'm surprised they have internet at all, but they got coffee shops. It's a little joke for anybody that lives out west. Here we go, man. Into Dad Talk today. We're going to do an update to a story. This is one of the first stories that I reported on Dad Talk. It's been almost 3 years ago now. Really quick, while we're starting this up, many ways you can support the show down at the bottom. Dad Talk Today, no spaces, Cash App, Venmo, Patreon. There's also super chats and memberships over there on YouTube. The same thing over on Facebook. I'd ask you to like, share, subscribe, and ding the bell so you get notifications for when we're going live, because these are stories that a lot of people wouldn't know about. I can guarantee you. We had a TikTok, Instagram. This went viral earlier this week, and we're trying to get this story back out there about this beautiful little girl, Sophia Larson. And just to give everybody a little update on this, I got her father, Alec, on there with me now. He's been on here with me before. Alec, how you been doing, man?
I've been hanging in here, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. So, you know, I don't, if you guys want to, you can go look up Justice for Sophia. We had that on Dad Talk, man, like I said, several years ago. But I'll try to run through this as quick as I can. Alec, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an incident where your daughter was at the mom's, picked up a bottle of water, thinking that she was going to get her something to drink, and she actually drank her mom's bong water, where she was smoking crystal meth. And if I remember correctly, that from drinking that, it threw her into cardiac arrest and killed her. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it took a little while to kick in, and then once the meth took over her body, she did have a heart attack, and that happened outside of the hospital. And by the time they got her to the hospital, she was already gone, and they tried to bring her back, but it had already taken her life.
This story is so twisted, guys. So twisted. And I'm going to warn you when we get into this, I know it's going to be a little triggering and it's hard. And I know it's hard for you to speak about it as well, Alec, but I know you're looking to get justice. The things that happen in this case will blow your mind. It wasn't just Sophia's mom that was involved in this. There was some other people there. I believe they are all listed in this picture right here. All of them have been, there's been justice on all of them except for one, the one on the very far right. Alec, walk everybody through what happened that night, step by step, and what everyone that we just saw on that screen, what their involvement was.
I mean, as far as I know, there was no custody agreement. Her Sophia's mom and I kind of had our own little agreement, and for the most part, Sophia was over at her mom's house on one of the few days that she was allowed to be over there, and it happened to be Daniel's birthday. The man in the middle of that picture that you just showed, it was his birthday. So they decided to party and do their thing, and Sophia was there, and so they had their meth and were having fun and figuring out whatever they were gonna do. My daughter was supposed to be asleep. She woke up and needed some water, and she got a hold of what those three individuals were using to smoke their meth and get high. Once they realized, they kind of just they watched her. They did weird little rituals and Bible verses, thinking that she was possessed and they could help her out. And it went on long enough to where she ended up having a heart attack, and that's when they finally took her to the hospital. And when she got to the hospital, she was pronounced dead, and then chaos went from there. It's been at this point almost a 3.5 year battle to figure out what happened and who's involved and whatnot. Her mom was charged fairly quickly. The middleman, who they were celebrating his birthday, he was charged about a year and a half later. The third individual was deported before she was charged, and she's recently returned back to the valley, same valley where all this happened. She's hanging out here and still living her life. And that's kind of where we're at. I've continued my life on and started living it, but we're this, and it's hard to get there, I guess. And all three individuals were involved. One was her mother, the other two were her aunt and uncle. So it's all family. It was very close. It was people that we all grew up together and thought we could trust. Ended up taking Sophie's life.
Talking about this. So they thought after Sophia drank this bong water that she was demon possessed and was reading Bible verses and trying to basically exorcise the demons out of your daughter.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I wasn't there. I was
right
80 miles away in my home, but according to affidavits and what people have said, they were trying to exorcise the demon out of her. They thought she needed an exorcism, and yeah, I mean, they saw it as I don't know, some sort of demon thing or external thing before. I don't know what was going through their head. I've never done that drug. I don't know what it does to you, and I don't know what you'll think when you're watching that thing. But they were convinced that she was possessed and she wasn't overdosing, and that's what led to her overdosing was their lack of being an adult, I guess. Their lack
now
of ever.
it's been a while since we reported on that story, so the details are a little bit fuzzy. But it's like I remember, wasn't there something they got from the neighbors, like some oxygen, or there was something that they was trying to use on Sophia to keep her alive?
Yeah, so Bertha, the one that was deported and we're looking for now, her ex-wife, now wife at the time, she has cystic fibrosis, so she has all the oxygen machines and that sort of stuff at their house to help her. And when Sophia started passing, I guess I don't know how else to say it, when she started losing her breath and couldn't stay there, they took her over to Bertha's house and thought if they gave her the oxygen machine that it would save her. So they chose to try and treat her themselves before they contacted 911 or anything.
That is so crazy, man. I mean, it just makes me wonder, like, had they taken her to the hospital right away, of course, if this would have never happened in the first place, but if they would have took her to get her medical care, and I know, we're looking at back on this years later, and this situation is just so tragic, man.
Yeah,
You
and I
said you
first
got justice with mom pretty quickly, right?
right, yeah, and I think that just had a lot to do with the day before her first court appearance. She showed up at my house and kicked my door in and assaulted me in my sleep and tried to have me kill her in her suicide attempt, or kill me and her at the same time the day before her first court appearance. So they weren't gentle on her. She had come back and came after me after the entire funeral and everything, the whole death of Sophia.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, that was it. It was, I was home asleep getting ready for court the next day and heard a little knocking, and I had a friend, staying with me, so I thought it was him. I went and opened the door without looking, turned around, and it was Stephanie. So I closed the door real quick and locked it, and then she kicked it in. It was a whole crazy mess. We had probably 30 cops at my house to come arrest her and somebody else, and this was 4 hours before her first court appearance. So I think that was a big influence. Everybody saw that and saw that she was kind of out there, out of her mind, I guess. So that was a big push and a help for getting her so quickly sentenced.
Did you ever get an apology from Stephanie for what happened?
In court, when her last statement before she was sentenced. But I feel like that's a given. Anybody that's in that situation is gonna turn around and apologize and try and, I guess, milk their situation for a little sympathy. Other than that, no, I never once. Um, After the whole thing with the night I showed up to the hospital and saw Sophie there, after that I just really cut her off too. If she tried to apologize, I wasn't listening. I didn't let her talk to me. It was I was just kind of done and over with it.
I think I'd have been probably in your shoes, man. You guys hear this is Sophia, uh, very beautiful little girl, man. Alec, I mean, it's hard talking these because I can only imagine what it's like to walk a mile in your shoes. I don't think anybody would ever want to have to do that, but that is something that you've had to do. What's that been like for you the past, several years, just trying to keep in there and get back to a normal life and fighting this case? What's been going on with you, man?
Through the beginning, it was hell on earth, to be completely honest. Going through the whole court case and everything we went through, and having to bring all the dirty, nasty details up day in, day out with this lawyer, this DA, that person. It was rough the first year and a half or whatnot. And then almost 2 years ago, I got in another relationship and found a woman that's really taking care of me. She's she's got her daughter that's about Sophie's age, and she just reminds me so much of her. And that's kind of been my drive, and she's helped me get to the point to where now, we don't look at the bad stuff. We don't look at the gnarly side.
There you are.
There we are.
Sorry, man. I don't know if it's me or you.
Yeah.
I'll edit this out and make sure it's good. You was talking about meeting the. I thought I had that out. Let's keep going. The new person that you're with.
Yeah, and being with her and having her daughter around has really helped me keep my head on straight, I guess. She's helped me push towards just thinking about the good in Sophie and what we had and how great she was. I feel like we've almost got to the point where we try not to worry about the bad. Obviously it's going to come back up if we do get Bertha in custody, but now it's more about the future. I think of, Sophie would want me to continue on. She'd want me to have a life. She always wanted siblings. My new lady and I have a new baby. She's about 15 months old or something like that, and I see it as, I think Sophie would love that, and she's cheering me on, and that helps me continue on. There's always the hard times, and like this, we got to talk about it again. We got to bring it up, and
Yeah.
But it's needed. This is something that everybody needs to hear about, and needs to happen, and that happens. But for the most part, I've been keeping busy with work, keep trucking on. I've got my stepdaughter and my daughter, and life's about as good as it can be for now. And my new little girl, we named her after Sophie. We gave her Sophie's middle name of Jaslyn. She looks just like her. She reminds me of her every day.
She does, man. I was going to get pictures of Sophie, and I had to double take twice. I was like, is he posting recent pictures of her? But I figured that was her, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, she came back to us,
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome, man. Guys, I want to share this from Alec's sister. They're on Facebook. This is Bertha Caballos Romo, who was involved in the death of my niece, Sophia Larson, on December 11th, 2019, is back in Roaring Fork Valley after getting deported. This is a post I shared over there on Dad Talk, guys. I would ask you, please do me a favor. Share this any and everywhere you can. This is, again, he talked about after her being deported, she is now back in the areas. That's what they think. And justice has not yet been brought. I want to see some justice on this. And Alec, I definitely know you've been waiting a long time to see that happen as well. And that's why we wanted to do the update on this case, guys. I mean, how old was you, Alec, when Sophie passed away?
Shit. I was 23, 22 and a half, 23, something like that.
I mean, you was a new dad, man. I remember thinking back,
Yeah.
you was a kid when you had her.
Sophia was born 5 days before I graduated high school. I was still 17 years old.
You was still a kid, man.
When she was born, changed my whole life for her. Became a dad.
Yeah, man. I tell you what, man, any way we can help, I'm following the case. Again, guys, make sure that you are watching that post right there and share it as far and wide as you possibly can. And I want to make sure that we continue to update on this case, Alec. I know this is something that we did, like I said, about 4 years ago now. We're heading into 2023. We just want to make sure that there's justice brought forth for your daughter, man. But I'm glad to see you moving along. Did you guys get the headstone for Sophie?
Yeah, we got that. It took a lot longer, which I love. It looks way better. The artist that did the whole sculpture, she took a lot longer than she thought, but it was well worth it. It's amazing. We got the headstone there. We've been doing a lot of work at her grave. I do an annual car show on her birthday every year. It's grown from 50 cars to 350 cars now so far. It's gotten to the point where the city's making me pull permits and do it legit, and and all that. So everything there is going great. The headstone looks awesome, and we have a turnout. It's amazing, and I'm looking to make it a nonprofit to try and bring awareness and everything to. It's almost a pandemic with what's happening with kids and the drugs and them being around parents and people just not being, thoughtful, I guess, and taking care of their kids. And in this valley, it's been really bad. There's a lot of people dropping from methamphetamine or this or that around here in the Roaring Fork Valley. And so I'm pushing to make a nonprofit, something that we can raise awareness, maybe try and raise some funds for some sort of help along that lines. Got my hands full. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm working for it.
It's what we're all doing, man. I mean, and that's needed. Any way I can help, man, let me know. I mean, not even an hour ago, right before I got on here with you to do this interview, I was talking to another father who lost his kid, and drugs was involved in that as well. And I was telling him, I was like, look, the gentleman I got coming on a little bit later on went through this same thing. I think all these parents that have been involved in something like this, you guys need to come together and organize so that we can get the message out there. I mean, the sad part about it is CPS knows a lot of this is going on, but they don't do much about it.
Right.
That's, and there's like I said, man, it's just a lot on my heart right now, dude. But I thank you for coming on here and doing this update. Is there anything you'd like to tell anybody about this, Alec, or anything that you'd like to say just in Sophie's memory while we got you on here? I just wanted to make sure that we gave you the platform to get anything out that you wanted to say, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my mind, if I had to say anything is, I hope there's somebody out there watching right now that may be in that hard situation and is looking for a reason to snap out of it or to do the right thing. There's a lot of people out there that just need a little push or anything, and it's not about you. It's about your kids. It's about the people around you. When it comes to drugs and addiction and stuff like that, I just wish people would think more about the people around them, especially if they're young ones. And hopefully just having the story out there and unfortunately there's other stories and there's my story and we have to hear about this, but I just want somebody to hear this and for it to change their mind, for them to go, wow, I could do that to my kid, or I could ruin somebody's family. I want them to think about it, think about their actions. And that's, I've been told that since I was a kid, but as adults, our actions are way graver than our actions as a kid. A kid messes up, that doesn't hurt anybody. An adult messes up, especially when it comes down to what adults can do and what they can get into. It can ruin everybody's life. It's not just you or just one person. It can be your mom, your dad, your sisters, your whole family, or somebody else's mom, dad, sister, and whole family. Right. I just hope somebody hears the messed up part of it, and unfortunately that messed up part should be the reason that somebody changes their mind on their actions or what they're doing.
Absolutely, man. I mean, right before I got on here, I was rewatching the reel that I made about Sophie, and I saw a comment down there that Sophie was my granddaughter. I'm guessing, was that your mom?
Yeah, I would assume so. If it was Heather, my mom was really involved with everything. I tried to keep her out of all the interview stuff and whatnot, but she, it was a rough time. I didn't know if I could handle her and all the chaos. I mean, that story was international. I had Times Magazine calling me and people from other countries calling me and stuff like that. So tried to keep her satisfied, but out of it. And, I mean, she was there from day one. She was our babysitter. She watched her all the time. This messed my mom up more than I think it messed me up. And I think it was just, I felt like I had to be the man of the house and carry them on my shoulder through the whole thing. So I was able to man up and stick it out.
Well, that's kind of what I was asking you about. That I was curious how this is really taking a toll on your family.
Yeah, it's been rough between my sister and my mom. I don't have a whole lot of family. It's, my close family or the people that are always around is just my sister and my mom, and they've been there since day one. We had Sophia when I was 17. I was still a kid. I had a lot of help from them. And they babysat every day while I was out working 14, 15-hour shifts, and they spent probably more time with Sophia than I did. And so through the whole thing, it really messed them up, and I feel like I just finally got my mom back too. It was real bad for the past few years. It just kind of, she lost it for a while there, and she's finally starting to see the way that I tried to see it, and the way I saw it was just the way I felt like I had to keep Sophie happy and to keep my family together, I guess.
Yeah, man, I can only imagine. And being so young, was that something that you processed right away, or was there like a denial period before it really sank in?
I don't know. I still don't, to this day, I don't really know how I processed it. I still get a lot of talk from other people about like, how the hell did you do that, or like, what are you doing, or what was your thought process or whatever. And I don't know. I contribute it, or I give all the credit to my grandma. She was 100% Native American Crow Indian from the Cherokees, and she saw everything as, like, I'm not a religious man, but she saw everything as, make sure if somebody passes, you're still doing them right and still doing what they would want you to do. So that's the way I saw it once Sophie passed. I mean, Sophie didn't know her mom had anything to do with it, so I couldn't retaliate against her mom because I was worried Sophie was watching and she would see that and she wouldn't understand. So I just tried to go about it as just kind of what my grandma instilled in me, just be a man about it, take care of everybody. And, I had my time to process and like break down and do all that, but just, it wasn't right. Everything was so fragile at that point. I was sitting here trying to stop a war in this valley. There was people out there looking for blood, and there was people looking for my blood, and it was chaos for at least a year until the truth started coming out. So I I think I processed it. I still have my moments, especially with my girlfriend's daughter. She's the same age as Sophie, and just reminds me so much of her that
Yeah,
times they kicks my butt, and it does break me down. But I think I've gotten through it to a point to where I'm not, I've processed it enough that I can live with it, and I can figure out step by step from now on, I guess.
And I heard you talk to any of the other parents that might be dealing with some of this stuff and the consequences that come along with it. But for any of the parents that have lost a child due to another parent's negligence or drug use, similar to what you've had to experience, the father that I was just on with an hour ago, his son just passed away several months ago. It hasn't been long at all. And we sat here with him while he was crying his eyes out, man. He's blaming himself for it.
The 14-year-old boy.
14-year-old boy, man, and he's blaming himself
Right.
for it, which I think would be natural.
It is.
But what's some advice that you could give them, Alec? I know you might not have all the answers, but what's some advice that you could give to one of these parents that are grieving the loss of their child?
I feel like my advice is, especially if you're on the end that I'm on, and that happened, you went through that, but who you were, who you were to that child, that child loved you and you took care of it. My advice is just think of what your child would say to you. If even my daughter, she was 5 years old, but she probably would have told me it wasn't mom's fault. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't anything. So, if you're on that side where you're the victim just as much as your child, just go through it the way that you think your child would want you to go through it. They're all innocent and pure, no matter what. You know, all the way through high school and whatever. It doesn't matter their age. Like, if that happens at such a young age, they're genuine, and they know what they think needs to happen. And as hard as it was so hard for me not to end up in jail just like these other people. I fought
I can
myself for a
imagine.
long time to not do some crazy stuff. you know um, but through the whole thing, I thought, what would my daughter be happy? Someday, in my mind, someday you're going to see that kid again. You're going to find her. You're going to meet her in the spirit world or in the afterworld or wherever you're going to meet her, whatever your beliefs are, whatever it is. You're going to find your child again, and you're going to speak to that child again. And you got to do whatever you think that child will be happy about you doing.
Guys, do me a favor right here on the very right. Bertha Sabalos Romo is still out there. If you see her, make sure to say something. Alec, if somebody was to see her, where would be a good place for them to report her whereabouts?
Just the closest local sheriff's department is what it sounds like to me. I don't think there's anything quicker. It's more of a non-emergency 911 call. They'll ask you what it's for. You tell them that you have information on a warrant. You can tell them it's a felony outstanding warrant, fleeing the country sort of warrant. That'll get somebody to call you back quicker, and then just speak to a sheriff.
Absolutely, guys. Make sure spread that around. There needs to be justice. And Alec, I know it's not easy. I'm speaking about this, but I want to say thank you again. There was a lot of pain that came from the loss of Sophie. Let's turn that into purpose. This is a story that people need to hear, and maybe we can prevent this from happening to another child in the future. I guess it's the only thing we can hope for at this moment.
Yeah, and that's my goal. I want it to be a big enough story that it raises awareness and people start talking about it. People think about it, and something can happen. That it keeps happening. It's not. I wasn't a one-time thing. I've seen many other stories. I've seen you report stories on the same thing. I've seen similar stories just in this valley that don't get as much coverage as the way I blew this one up. And I think people need to be aware of this, and people need to think about it, and it needs to be something we talk about.
Any of those stories you see out there, man, let me know, and we'll do our best to get it out there. And as you can see, this is 4 years later. We're back on it again. We're not going anywhere with this one. I want to see justice for Sophie. Alec, man, I'm so glad to see that you're hanging in there, dude. Congrats on your beautiful family. I was scrolling through the pictures when I was going to get the picture. Sophie's such a pretty little girl, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Such a pretty little girl, but I'm glad you got your your life on track, and that mom's in jail. But guys, she needs to follow. She needs to follow every single one of them Bible verses, putting them on oxygen. That story is just so twisted. But Alec, stay in touch with me, buddy, and we're going to keep this story out there, man.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Eric, and dealing with all my runarounds for you the past few days here.
That's all good, brother. Hey, man, I understand.
Right on, man. Well,
all right, guys, that was the end of that. It was one thing doing the interview, but having to rewatch it. Such a beautiful little girl, man. Such a beautiful little girl. I couldn't imagine being in that father's shoes. I wouldn't want to, man. In order to be able to empathize with a dad like that, I'd have to put myself in his shoes and say, what if that happened to my baby? I don't even want to have thoughts like that. I don't think anybody wants to have thoughts like that. What if that happened to my baby? He had to go stand over a 5-year-old child's casket, guys. Could you imagine the feelings that must have been going through his head? The torture that a parent must experience when they lose a child. The same thing with Justin Knoll as he was on here talking about that. The one thing that did come to my mind when listening to this story, Alec, Justin, any dad that I've ever talked to where this happened, Jonathan Vanderhagen, you know what happens? They go to this system. They try to get answers. They try to do the right thing. Something like this bad happens. And guess who they end up blaming? They look in the mirror and say, I didn't protect my child. It was my fault. Even though they did everything that the system told them to. They're going through enough mental torture as it is, losing a family member, and then having to live with the blame. What could I have done different? It's just sick, man. I'm really, genuinely at a loss of words. And I want you to understand the battle that we have getting these stories out. I put this on TikTok, Instagram, I did the little reels. It got hundreds of thousands of views, man. We do this. Look how many people is tuning in. It is very hard getting these stories out there. And yes, this is an older story, but there is still somebody out there that has not been brought to justice. You would think the media would be all over it. Why aren't you talking about it now? I guess it's not going to make the ratings that it once did, but you could get justice for this little girl. I feel like there's so many people that could care less about the justice part. We go on to the next news cycle. And that's why Dad Talk today is so important. We need to be doing this Dad Talk, man. We need to be doing it right now. We need to be doing it every day. I'm pissed off. When you see me on here with the emotions, sit down and talk to dads like this. Crazy thing. I was a young father, just like Alec. Like 18, 19 years old, I was becoming a single dad. Or was becoming a father. I was a single dad, like at the age of 20. Raising a 1-year-old daughter. Had no idea what in the hell I was doing, dude. And I blame myself for a lot of it because I made a lot of mistakes. I was a kid. And this one hit me so hard because I remember sitting down with Alec and just looking at this guy in his grief. And it almost felt like talking to one of my kids that was just in that birthing moment of becoming a dad and maturing. I believe women are born with that desire to want to be a parent because it's a natural desire. And us men, we have it too, but we grow into it as we have our kids and we become that protector and we build that bond with our kids. It's like, dude, anybody that messes with my kids, you got to go through daddy, right? And it matures us. It shows us how we want to kind of let go of that person that we was when we was a teenager or the one when we finally got some freedom. Let me go hang out with my friends, go to the bar, whatever. We start wanting to become a family man and it matures us. It was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life was becoming a father. I still have my challenges. I still have my arguments with my kids. They're kids, right? But here was one that didn't get a chance. I'll tell you what really blew my mind, man, was going back through this. I was trying to get some pictures of Sophie so I could show you just how beautiful the little girl was that we lost over this. The child that he's got with his new girl looks just like Sophie, man. I was looking and I was like, whoa. And he keeps saying it's like God brought her back to me. In many ways, it is. It is. I want to stick with these stories. I'm not just going to report on them and go away. There needs to be justice. I did see a question here. Jimmer Wilkinson. He said, sounds like she either went nuts or hid it well from you. I'm sorry for your loss. How are you doing? Is she in jail? Alec is doing a lot better, guys. He's moved on. And I'm going to tell you, if it would have been me in his shoes, I don't know if I could have done it as well as he has. He had to keep his family together. He's got all these people that was grieving, had all this media that was reaching out to him. He said they just packed out the funeral home because there was people that wanted to say they was at the funeral with, the girl that died drinking the bong water. Think about that, man. You're still sitting here trying to process it, young father. You're trying to get justice. You're trying to do what's right. And at the same time, you've got this media that he didn't hear from before, all just on top of him. Very hard. He's done very well, man. And I think he's, he still does stuff in her tribute, but he's moving on. And as hard as that can be to do, guys, you have to move on. You have to put one foot in front of the other. He's got another kid he's got to be there for. From what I hear, they do an amazing job with that car show. Lots of people that are still behind this story. The mom is in jail. She got 32 years in prison. Okay. I forget what the other guy got. I think I was reporting it as a boyfriend This is sometimes I get the details mixed up. And if I ever do that, guys, I'll be the first one to come on here and tell you, like, it's hard keeping all the details of hundreds of stories. But it was a cousin. It wasn't the boyfriend. But he's in jail. The one that was on the far right, the Bertha, she went, I think she got deported to Mexico during the Trump administration. So they couldn't get her. And from what we're being told, she might be back. So if you saw that picture, please pass it around. I actually shared it on the page prior to this interview, so people probably had no idea what that post was about. But that was Alec's sister. They're still looking for justice, and they should be. Okay? And one of the things that we're going to do at the end of this month is make sure that that story gets out the way it needs to, but also that there is a tribute to that child and her legacy. The only thing that you can do right now is turn that pain into purpose. You can't make sense out of that situation. You can't make sense out of any of these situations, guys. Katie said a woman becomes a mother the moment she finds out she's pregnant. A man becomes a father when he sees his child for the first time. There's some that might dispute that. I like that, Katie, because I'll tell you. I remember when my first child came, okay? My ex at that time was saying she wanted to have kids. She wanted to have them young. I was a kid. I was immature as all get out, still trying to figure things out. Lots of demons I was fighting in my own head, but she said she wanted a kid. We got married young, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So she was pregnant. And it never dawned on me that whole 9 months that I am about to be a dad. There's going to be a kid in this world that you're going to be responsible for, dude. I was that immature. And the day I woke up and she said, Eric, my water broke. And I remember just sitting there in the bed, like lost. I was like, no, it didn't. Sat there again. She's Eric, my water broke. The baby's coming. No, it's not. Happened a third time. My response was the same. I don't think so. Mom, her mom was there. And then we went to the hospital. And I remember the first time I laid my eyes. Well, I remember the first time seeing the childbirth in person. And it looked like a bloody roast came out afterwards. I'm not trying to make this nasty, but it was when reality hit me as of what was going on. I'm like, what in the hell is that thing? You know? And then I see my baby. And at first she wasn't breathing because she had some blood caught in her throat. But they went and they got that blood out of her throat. And then she started crying. I remember that feeling of like, my daughter, I haven't even got to see her. I haven't even got to hold her yet. Is she okay? I was caring for her before I even, you know, that moment, like I got to protect my baby. I was going into dad mode. And then I looked upon her face, and it was when I realized, like, oh, this is real. This is real. Up until that point, it kind of felt like a movie. And then 1 year later, I'd be going through my first divorce, and I'd be raising her as a single dad. And it happened at Christmas. And I'm going to tell you, I was still immature. I was heartbroken that my family had broke up. I was drinking my sorrows away, doing everything because it felt like my world was crashing down at the age of 20 or 21. And I was still a kid. I used to beat myself up over, man, I wish I would have done this better. I didn't know, man. I didn't know. But you know what? It matured me. It was what I had to figure it out. I didn't give up. I made mistakes, but I hung on in there. And I love the person that I became because of having children. Now, if something like that would have happened to my daughter at 5 years old, I can't tell you I'd even be here right now. Because there was times in my life when I was going through these situations, guys, that the only thing that kept me getting my feet out of that bed was knowing I got to fight for her. That I got to fight for those babies. So to see this young man still on here, he's still a young man, fighting, figuring it out, rebuilding, keeping her memory alive, making sure that he's sharing his daughter's story so that other people can know what's going on. These are deaths that could have been prevented had Sophia not been there that night and drank that water. there is a very good possibility, very high possibility, more likely than not, she would still be here. Had Caleb been with his dad, Justin, instead of at home, not eating as a diabetic, would have been with his dad, eating, taken care of, there is a very good possibility he would still be here. I want you to think about this. Where is Caleb's mom now? She is in jail, attached to a murder case that's going on. That was just like 2 months after his death. If he would have still been here on earth, he would have probably been with his dad anyway. This was a case that went through CPS. These are serious cases, guys. And we tell dads that they need to try harder. They need to make better choices. They're not fighting hard enough. Have a heart, man. Have a heart. The days of putting it all on the dad are over. The only way we're going to be able to expose the BS is to speak up. So that's why I'm so glad to see that. Tom said, thanks to Justin's story, I spoke with my 17-year-old son for 2 hours that night. I told him it felt like an hour. He said, Dad, it felt like 4 hours. That's awesome, man. That story inspired you to reach out. Because here's the thing, guys. We have this illusion sometimes in our daily lives with the stress, with our routines, with work, with bills and everything, that my life might not be going the way I want it to go right now, but tomorrow I'm going to get to it. I've been one of the biggest procrastinators and believers in that. Like, I can't deal with it now. I'll get to it tomorrow. And a lot of these guys are doing everything they can just to get through their daily lives. And then tomorrow is when it happens and they're not prepared for it. I don't know many. I don't know that I've ever talked to a dad that said I was prepared for any of these situations that's going on. But that is life and it is reality. And if we can be doing something, if some tweaks to this system, if getting incentives out, if making sure that Child Protection Services is actually protecting the kids that they're supposed to be representing, can keep kids on this earth, they can keep parents on this earth so that they can parent their kids, why aren't we doing it? The consequences become one of the most valuable things that we have on this earth. There's people losing their life over it. They're losing their voices. They're losing their kids. They're losing their parents over the failures of this system. Why? Because of the money. It always goes back to the money. That's why I say I hate money. I hate it so much, man. Tim said, when my son got put in my arms, is no feeling anything could ever be imagined or topped. Dude. You know, and then I know a lot of these situations where these dads have been alienated and stuff. And it's been years and they're like, man, I'm fighting so hard for my kid. But if that day ever comes, what's it going to be like? They might not even know who I am. They might have been told that I was gone because I didn't want anything to do with them. Like, what is going on in their head? We don't know. It's not as glorious as it sounds. They've got to rebuild a whole relationship. These are years that have went by without this person. It's like they didn't even exist, or like they were the evil character in the book, in the movie. Right? That's greed talking, and delusional women that think the system is working for them only if they want to be a victim for life. You know, man, I hate doing some of the stuff I have to do sometimes. It's like the video this morning. You know, my baby daddy, he doesn't want nothing to do with his kid. He doesn't pay me child support. I beg him to be with his kid, and the whole time the dad's in the back, can I see my kid? Do they need something? How can I help? But then they get on social media, and because we've allowed this stereotype and crap to go on against dads, people believe it. And it really blocks the fathers from anybody being able to do anything. And so we're going to have to bring out more awareness like that into people that have never questioned the narrative. They're going to pop back off at it. They really are. You know, I saw other dads yesterday talking about the conversation about child support. If you guys talk about child support, it's just because you're immature men and you don't want to pay money to the mom. And it's because his case was okay. Okay, because your case was okay. You're saying everybody else's wasn't because they aren't you. How pig-headed do you got to be, man? Do you know what it's like paying a child support that you can barely afford? And then when you do get to see your kid every other weekend or once a month and you're carrying all the expenses, they're calling somebody else daddy and they're showing up in raggedy clothes and don't have any of their needs or anything met. But mom, she's all dolled up and they don't know what that's like. But they'll try to speak for them. So many people will try to speak for them, and it keeps the thumb down on dads. Imagine if masculinity actually bucked back and started saying, bullcrap, man. Tell your stories, guys. Tell them. We might not be able to get them all out on here, but let the world know, what is it that you're going through? That's what this is. It's a microphone. This is a microphone to say enough of the bullcrap. We're going to speak back. We're going to tell you what's actually going on. If they want to use social media to make it look like we're pieces of crap, let us pick up the microphone and show you what's going on behind closed doors. You only get one side of the story, and it's usually the side of the story that makes somebody look like a victim. Rob said, my two daughters, 18 and 22, don't talk to me anymore because of my ex-wife and her family. Tim, anyone that says a dad needs to do more to see their kids haven't had their kid taken and fought that uphill battle by themselves with even the state they live in, putting every obstacles in their way. It's the most defeating feeling a human can feel. It's been a 2-year process, and yes, some of it was my doing, but I'll be damned if I ever stop. Dude, I mean, here we go. Look, there is always going to be times where we've got our parts in it. We were going to get angry. There was stuff. That's probably why it broke up. This is a very high conflict thing. When your family's breaking up, kids are in between. You feel like your kids hasn't been taken care of, but you are absolutely 100% right. This is such a selfish and entitled world that even a story like what Alec just told, this is what I went through. Somebody could come in there and say, well, me and my baby's mom, we got along. I paid her child support. She took care of the kid, or I got 50-50 custody in court. So his story is false. No, his story is his story, and his daughter is now in a grave. And because the world hasn't been listening to what dads are going on, it allows situations like this to happen because nobody has any damn sympathy until it becomes an article on some mainstream media or it gets passed around on social media. It is what we have allowed, guys. And it is. We are our brother's keeper. We're going to have to lock arms and make sure that we get loud. Okay? If I get a little fired up when I'm on here sometimes, it's because I know I'm looking at the guy on the other side of that screen that thinks it's never going to happen and that has gave up hope. It's saying, dude, stop it, man. Stop it. Maybe you're fighting in the wrong arena. Maybe you'll never win in that arena of family court. Maybe you'll never win in that scenario going up against that baby's mom. But have you fought here? Have you supported the ones that's fighting the overall fight? When we come together, our voices become stronger, dude. It becomes stronger. It becomes louder. It shows people, no. This isn't some one-off situation in California. It wasn't some one-off situation up in New York. It's happening all across the country. And when you go through this, you have somewhere to get support. Did you see the other clip I made yesterday? There is people that treat their attorneys like counselors. And let me tell you something. There is attorneys that love it when you do that. Thanks, Jack. The attorneys love that. You are so desperate for hope. You are so broken down and you're looking for answers. You're told to go to the family courts. And then you don't understand what's going through the family courts. Your time is spent at work. You can't take it to go and read up this legalese in this foreign language that they've made into family court. It's not just going in there and showing them the documents and saying, Judge, look at the common sense. It's not, you got to file this, you got to file this money, mediation. We got to do all these little different steps. Nah, dude. So these guys just go ahead, work their job. A lot of them, man. I mean, what's the median income in this country right now? And I'm going to tell you, our dollar bill sucks. It doesn't go very far. But then you go and talk to some of these guys that are charging anywhere from $400 to $1,000 an hour to work on these family court cases. And if your ex is high conflict, man, you're talking about a lot of hours you're going to have to pay this guy. And that's going to have to go to the courts where it's going to create more conflict. And this person that you're paying to protect your interest, this is a guy that's helping me to get back my family. I need him to know my story. I want to tell him everything about my story. And I also just want to get it off my chest because what I'm going through is so crazy. You wouldn't believe it. Can I just talk to somebody that will actually freaking care? And you go to these attorneys. Sit down. Tell me all about it. Give me all the details. Time starts now. Could you imagine if everybody started getting in here and we supported our brothers, man? Do your venting in here. Do your venting in the Dad Talk Today support group. Don't get charged by the hour for getting those feelings off of your chest. Don't do that, man. That's bullcrap. That's why I say we are our brother's keeper. I know you might be fighting your own battles, but if you could sit down with some other guys that are going through the same thing, realize that your story is not uncommon, and say, let's do this together, I think they're going to have more of your interest at heart than the person that's charging you $400 a freaking hour to listen to your problems. You should have never had to pay somebody to give you rights to your kids. You understand? You shouldn't. And I know a lot of people, oh, you don't have to. Go pro se. Dude, if you're one of those guys that was in the middle of a marriage, you had a house, you had a car, now you got kids, got all these bills on, you probably don't have much time left. And if you've got the opportunity to work some overtime so you can make some extra money to have something to support yourself afterwards, you're probably taking advantage of every little bit of overtime that you can, even though there would be nothing more desirable than to do your job, get off work, and go home and spend it with your family. But you're having to stay at that place to make that money, to give it to a third party to help give you rights to your own family. Have we seen how ridiculous this is, man? Ridiculous. The revolution's got to happen. The revolution's got to happen, and people have to believe it can happen in order for it to happen. People have to get involved in order for it to change. Those who think they're crazy enough to change the ones are usually the ones that does, right? I need some crazy guys in here. I need some dreamers that believe that we can prevent stuff like you saw on the screen today. When you fight as a movement as a whole, you're not just fighting for your story. You're protecting other kids like Sophia Larson. You're protecting other fathers like Jonathan Vanderhagen and Justin Knoll. It goes way beyond just ours, guys. And I know you're fighting some crazy stories. Mine is too. If I honestly sat down and told you the things that I've been through, it'd blow your mind. What good is that going to do in the grand scheme of things? I guess I could get it off of my chest. I've got people that I talk to. At the same time, when I come on here, let's amplify these stories and say, get together, man. Get together. We need you. Man, dude, I salivate over that thought of getting change inside of these courts. Seeing that CPS finally held accountable. And dude, if you compiled all these cases and all of us guys were together and said, look at the destruction that's been on your hands. Look at the destruction of these incentives that you've put these dads in court. How in the world are you going to excuse that? You can no longer say, well, it's a deadbeat dad. No. Are you going to call Alec a deadbeat dad? Are you're going to call Vanderhagen a deadbeat dad? He told you that if you don't give him custody of his son, something's going to happen. He wanted to take care of his kid, but you said no. And then everything that the father told you was going to happen happened. And now there is an 18-month-old baby boy that is no longer here on this earth because you didn't want to listen to a dad that was crying out to you and go into a system. Dude, you should see the paperwork the guy's got. It would blow your freaking mind. And that's what really pisses me off about attorneys and people claim to be experts in this field. It's like, they're just not fighting hard enough, or they're not doing it smart. Is there anything smart about family court? Seriously, anything? Because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. General Miller, let's bring him up. He said, I fought 2.5 years for my son against DHS. His mom and I get along fine, but DHS to him is a crucial point. As a result, I'm potty training a 5-year-old and he has behavior issues, dude. Oh my God. It's because the kids get coddled, right? I've seen the 5-year-olds that are still sitting in the car seats, got the pacifiers or breastfeeding. Just like the government wants moms dependent on them, government wants to be the daddy. A lot of times, those type of moms want the kids dependent on them. They're already dependent on you, mom. They're already dependent on you, dad. But doing stuff like that, man, you got to start teaching your kids lessons. That's why discipline. There is a healthy fear. There is healthy consequences. You need to teach your kids morals and lessons. And every day that we go by, whether it's on entertainment, whether it's in our schools or whatever, the morals and values and stuff that dads and moms instill in their kids is being fed to our kids that we are wrong. Listen to the government. Listen to entertainment. Listen to the school system. The government's already made their way inside of your families, your marriages, your homes, your parenting. Now there's these other influences coming, and the more they get in there, the more it starts driving parents away and their lessons that they instill in their kids. And what are a lot of us doing? Putting our kids on the bus and sending them to it for them to do it to us. And that'll have to be another conversation. Like I said, guys, go down there on the Dad Talk Today wall there on Facebook. You'll see the post about Bertha Ramos. Romo, not Ramos. For some reason, I want to call her Ramos. It's on there, and let's help Alec get out the awareness on that situation. I guess I scream sometimes and do the things I do because tomorrow I'm afraid of what the story is going to be. This is why I want Dad Talk Today to go away. This is why I want this podcast to be completely destroyed. But it's not going anywhere until we see the system changed. I don't want to wake up to these stories anymore. These parents don't either. You can't call these dads deadbeats when they're fighting in this system that you made, going broke, and going through crap like this in order to be a dad. This system is deadbeat. I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of these moms the same exact way. Forget being politically incorrect. You are telling them to go and try to get along and to reason with somebody that doesn't know how to freaking reason. And you can sit there and tell him he should have chose better. Lord have mercy. It's so easy for people to sit on their high chairs and think that they never did anything wrong and just tell people that the worst moments of their life is because of their choices. They might have made mistakes. They might have made bad choices, but we're talking about justice. We're talking about evil here. And if you try to excuse that, you're just as bad as the person doing it, man. In my book, you are. All right. I'm going to put this GoFundMe back down in the comments again about John Mast. Please, guys, help me get that one out there. I am fighting censorship like you can only imagine. It is crazy. Crazy, crazy. I go on other people's shows from time to time, and when I get started doing the stuff I'm doing, the chats just pow, 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 pow. Who is this guy? We want to listen. We want to listen. But I come on here and it's like my reach just keeps getting, the bigger we get, the smaller our reach is getting. Doesn't make sense to me. So I'm calling upon you because we need you. And we are here to fight as long as we can get the support, man. But right now, I don't want no money coming to my podcast. I put the link down there in the chat, the GoFundMe to John Mass. They need the money to fight that court battle. And I'm going to tell you, they're very apprehensive and asking for help. But they need it. They need it. And we should be able to provide it. God is my witness, man. I plan on doing everything I can to make sure it happens. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't know. I'm afraid to tell you what tomorrow's story is going to be. I don't even know yet. Rest in peace, Sophia. Our government, the ones that are supposed to be protecting kids, the stories on my show, you're failing them. You are failing them. You need somewhere to put the blame because you can't accept the fact that your system is creating what we are seeing in the world today. And if we don't do something sometime soon, you're opening Pandora's box, guys. And it's been open for decades, but it's getting worse and worse. Let's shut that thing. We need to shut that box. And I'm just hoping that maybe we come across to one of these legislators or somebody that has the ability to do something that is finally going to listen and say, let us help. Until then, we've got to come on here and keep doing what we're doing. That's it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hey everybody, Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/dadtalktoday, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we